Welcome back to Aunt Debbie's Boutique. If you're new to the channel, it would be beneficial if you would watch the introduction video because it gives you instructions on what kind of supplies you need and what we are trying to accomplish here. I'll link it in the description box below. Today we're going to make a prayer quilt. A prayer pillow. This makes a nice gift, especially for a child, and encourages them to just write down their worries and their problems and tuck them in the little pocket here and turn them over to God. So that's what the purpose of this pillow is for. We're going to need a piece of, two pieces of fabric that are 18 length, at least 12 wide. You might want it a hair bigger because our pattern is exactly 12. Then we're going to need the pattern piece. And it comes in my kit, which you can purchase for $2.50 on my Etsy shop, and I'll link that down there. Or you can draw your own. It is 17, the outside lines are 17 inches this way and 12 inches that way. When you go to put the pattern together, there is an overlap line, a dashed line. You need to trim one side or the other, doesn't matter which one, and then butt it up next to the other side. The same on the bottom one. Then once you have those two together, you need to trim one of these and butt it up to the line to get your pattern. Once you have your pattern all put together, we want to cut out the cross, and we want to cut it out on the outside and on the inside. Now we're not going to cut our fabric this way, but we need this for a template. We need it cut out both places, and then we're going to cut out the heart for the pocket. Okay. I'm sorry I didn't finish that. You're also going to need a 6 by 6 inch square for your pocket of some sort of contrasting fabric. We're going to lay it on our fabric, take our chalk, which I'll link the chalk below, and we're going to trace all the way around the outside and on the inside. And I've done that to save us a little time. We're going to do the same with the heart pocket. Then we want to cut this out on the outside line and the heart. Do not cut on the inside line. This is our stitching line. Okay? So we have those already cut out. Okay. On our we're going to put on our heart, we're going to put it right sides together. And we're going to pin it in a few places. Then we're going to mark about 1.5 inches over here on one side that we're not going to sew because we need it open so we can turn it inside out. So we're going to take this over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew 1/4 inch all the way around, leaving this open. Okay, let's go to the sewing machine. We're going to start on one of our blue lines, and we're going to leave our presser foot right close to the edge. We're going to start it a little bit and then back stitch and then go forward again. And we're going to go down here until we get 1/4 inch from the other side. You just kind of have to guess. Then we're going to pivot, and by pivot I mean lifting our presser foot with the needle down. We want our needle down. Lifting our presser foot and turning it around to face the other side and putting our presser foot back down. Now we start sewing again. Now, it's pretty important that you keep your seams as close to the edge as you can. Not as close to the edge, but the curve with the edge. You want it to curve nice and pretty because that's how it's going to look. That's the shape it's going to be when you're finished. So I'm trying to stay real close to the curve of the pattern. We want to take our pins out before we run over them. We don't want to do any damage to our eyes or our sewing machine. Again, I'm going to pivot when I get to that low part of the heart and try to make those sharp curves until we come to the other blue line, and then I'm going to back stitch a couple of stitches. Okay, at this point we need to put little slits around the edge of a curve so when we turn it inside out it will lay nice. So you just clip it right up to the edge of the seam, but you don't want to cut your seam. Another method you can use is pinking shears, and you know I love my pinking shears, and just make sure that they get pretty close to the seam and they'll do the same thing. So I'm going to use my pinking shears, but you can, if you don't have any, you can use your regular scissors and just cut little slits every ½ inch or so. I do need to cut a slit right there at that point. Otherwise, it'll bunch when we turn it inside out. Just make sure you don't cut your seam. If you do accidentally cut your seam, go back over it and sew it again. And you only need to do this on the curved part. You don't need to on the straight part. But we also want to cut off our tip so we don't have all that bulk in there. And I like to kind of taper it a little bit to each edge too. Now, we don't want to trim it where we're going to turn it because we need that extra fabric. I'm going to turn this inside out. And this is when we're going to see just how smooth our seams are. But if they're not perfect, don't worry about it because I'm sure mine are not going to be perfect. See, that doesn't look real smooth right there. Okay, let's go back over to the ironing board now and iron this. Okay, we're going to take and iron under the edges where we turned it, first of all. That can be a little bit tricky, but you want to get your quarter inch ironed over on both sides. So you can't tell that you ever had an opening there. Just poke that extra thread inside. I'm going to use a pin to kind of bring out my point. I think I've got that out as best as I can. And you can see I didn't go real smoothly right there, so it's hard to get it perfect. But we're not perfectionists, we don't care. Okay, now we're going to take our cross, and we're only going to use the top piece. Don't sew through both of them. And we're going to center this, and we want it pretty far down, but not too far down, like say a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, right there from that point to there. And I'm going to pin it in place. Then I'm going to take a little piece of chalk and a straight edge and see where that low point is on your heart? We're just going to mark it on both sides here just a little bit. Can you see that? That's where we're going to start and stop so that we have a pocket that we can put things in. Now we're going to stitch as close as we can to the edge, all the way around, about an 1/8 inch or so. So let's go back to the sewing machine. Okay, we're going to start right at our little blue mark. I want my thread to come unthreaded. Take a couple of stitches forward, couple back, just to tie our knot, and then we're going to go forward all the way around, staying as close to the edge as we can. And it's kind of hard to get this perfect. My last one didn't look that good, so don't be too hard on yourself. Uh-oh, I got off. See, I told you it's hard to be perfect. So I'm just going to back up a hair and take off again. Okay, again, we're at a point we want to pivot, so we lift up our presser foot with the needle down, turn our fabric, and put our presser foot back down. And take off again. When we get to our next blue mark, we back stitch and we stop. Now let's go back over to the ironing board. Okay, let's real quickly steam our little heart in place. Now we want to use both pieces of our cross fabric. We're going to lay them right on top of each other. And we're going to pin it all the way around. So we can sew it. And when we go to our sewing machine, we're going to start up here at the top. We are going to leave this part open. We are not going to sew this seam right now. We're going to start here and sew all the way around and stop right here. So let's get it pinned and then we'll go back over to the sewing machine. All right, I'll meet you at the sewing machine. We're going to start here in our upper right-hand corner. And sew right on our line, sew forward a little bit and back stitch a little bit. We want to make sure we take out our pins as we go. Uh-oh, it didn't go forward. so that we don't run over them and break them and hurt our machine or fly up and hit us in the eye. Okay. Pivot at each corner. Back stitch when we get to the other side. Now let's go back over to the ironing board. Now that we've sewn all the way around here and our pocket is in place, we're ready to start making the fringe. And what we're going to do, first of all, is to cut out at each corner a square. We don't want to cut into our stitching, but we want to get pretty close to it. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to do that on all these corners. Okay. There is all of our corners cut out. Got a little bit of raveling here I'm going to cut off. Now the next step is to make our fringe. But part of making the fringe includes we need to cut these corners at an angle. There's 4 of them. Cut right up to the stitching, but do not cut the stitching. Now we're going to start about a 1/2 inch from the bottom of one of these, and we're going to cut again pretty close to the stitching. You don't have to go too close if it makes you nervous, but we're going to cut approximately a 1/2 inch fringe. We're going to do that all the way around. Okay, we have our fringe all cut all the way around, except we didn't cut the top. We will after we've stuffed it and sewed our seam, but it makes it harder to sew the seam if the fringe is cut before. But as you can see, it's cut all the way around. Now at this point, if you want your fringe to curl up and look real fringy, you can toss it in the washer and the dryer and it'll do just that. It's like a rag quilt. If you've ever seen a rag quilt, after you wash them, they look much better than before because these separate and curl up a bunch. So you can do that now, or you can do it after it's stuffed because it's washable at any point, or you don't have to. Okay, the only thing left to do is to stuff our cross and then sew it closed and fringe our top, and we'll be done. Again, just like with our teddy bears and bunnies, we want to do it in little wads. Otherwise, it gets kind of bulky, knotty looking. It doesn't lay smooth. So I like to tear it up into little pieces and fill it from the bottom up. So push all of this all the way to the bottom. And you don't want to fill it too tight. For one thing, if it's overstuffed, it's kind of hard to put things in the pocket. But especially at the top when you're going to close it, you don't want it overstuffed. Okay. Just kind of push that down in there pretty good. If you have some places where it wants to fold, it's probably between polyfill, so you need to just work it in a little bit better. I'm going to come up here and pin it. I'm going to sew it closed and then cut my slits, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've got a little fold there, so I'm going to try to work it a little better. And then we're going to clip this in. And we are done. Here's our prayer pillow with our nice little pocket to put our prayer requests in. And we're ready to gift it or keep it for ourselves. Thank you for joining me today. If you liked what you saw, I'd appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to my channel. It helps me to provide more projects. And on Wednesday of this week, we're going to learn how to turn tubes, a little advanced project of how, like when we made the straps for our bags, how to sew them up and then turn them inside out. And so join us for that one, and we will see you soon. Remember, whatever you do, do it to the glory of the Lord. Thank you.